Hello, agus fàilte bhláth go trí seascad an programme BBC Alba a dal go críoscíalach in Thòisich Jade and an Sil Sports na Alba. Is mis Iona Ballantyne agus ha mi toiltear ra go bhfuil sean chluicheadair rugby na Alba Heather Lockhart a ras callrooms in stiùidio. Seanna Harry hín ar a programma noch, Cluinnidh sin bhóché a chluich callí Heather Jade Konkel si a cumail fest rain with a nech gan is ure an a rugby bhon noch na Alba. Agus ha sin Thòisich Gill Inglis October de Màthar si a coid ras Thòisich Jade bliana chluichs in SWPL. Heather, welcome back to 360.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Well, it's good to have you back because the last time you were here was in October. Things were very different. Sport was kind of up and running again. Things are different this time. How have you been and how have you been keeping busy?
Yeah, obviously last time was October time, so between October and Christmas we were allowed to do a bit. So I do some schools coaching and some disability tennis coaching, and both were allowed to run outdoors. The kids at school were just really happy even to be doing sessions, and the week before Christmas they had like a Christmas party mini tournament, and they absolutely loved doing that. So I think it's just been grateful for small mercies and what you can do and what you are allowed to do and taking advantage of that. And our disability, normally we're indoors, but one of the local clubs has been really good, and we've been allowed to use their courts and do things outside as a group. We're not allowed to do outdoors as a group after Christmas, so I think we're going to be doing some individual stuff which we are allowed to do. So yeah, just doing that, and just from our rugby club's point of view as well, just keeping in touch with everything, doing some Zoom calls, keeping the family going as well. Zoom calls are there and lots of walks and stuff, so yeah, just doing what we can. So yeah. And
for the kids and the people who you do coach, how do you keep them motivated? Have you kept in touch with them? Have you heard from them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so emailing, texting, just dropping a line, Zoom, whatever. And it's amazing how creative people are, and what they can do locally, and sort of just giving ideas and indication to like apps you can use, and just other ideas, and just sharing ideas, and mainly just encouraging people. Just saying, you know, like it's okay, January, and so we can keep going, sort of thing. So yeah, just keeping encouraging.
They will be looking forward to getting back on the court and the pitch, I'm sure, like most of us.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
And the thing, last time you were here, Scotland rugby team, they had just drawn with France in the Six Nations. It was such an exciting result. There was so much momentum around the team, and since then things have kind of stopped. I mean, for the club, how frustrating is that?
I think from an international perspective, obviously the games were put on hold. They played 3 Six Nations matches, and the last 2 matches, Wales and Italy, didn't go ahead. England were crowned champions. So, but what they have been able to do since then is they have been able to do their weekly regional training, and they've also been, for the home-based Scots, have been able to do weekly at the Oriam on a Saturday. So in terms of competition, that's on hold at the moment. But in terms of the focus and the training, that's sort of been ongoing the whole time and uninterrupted. So that's pretty good that they're able to do that. Obviously, they're just waiting to see what happens with various things. The Six Nations has been put back to the spring, summer. So maybe that's a good thing, gives people a bit of extra time, a bit of extra window to get prepared for that. So I think from an international point of view, things that and I think it's just the curveballs, whatever comes your way, just dealing with it. And I think, you know, I think everyone knows, and every sports person or anyone at the moment knows, that things are subject to change, and you have to be able to deal with it and react with it, and know that is the position, and not be surprised by that, and just control the controllables. That's, you know, Steve Redgrave always talks about in the rowing, control the controllables, and I think that's for everyone. Dan Carter was posting stuff recently about, you know, you can exercise, what can you control. So in terms of club stuff as well, it's amazing what's going on. I don't know if you're aware of Dodie as well, Dodie Weir's challenge. So there's team competitions going on, and anyone can sign up for that.
Have you signed up to that?
I have actually, yep. So
how many miles are you doing?
just a wee bit. I've got my bike since Christmas. I haven't really been out, it's a bit icy, so I've got this sort of makeshift roller, so I've been managing to do some miles on that. Actually, I went out on the roads last night, so and some walks and stuff. So yeah, it's just nice to be part of that. So there's lots of things, that just creative thinking, and obviously for a fantastic cause for M&D research. So yeah, there's lots of things from club wise, and like some women rugby players for Christmas. There was a challenge to go around all the clubs. They ran rang around all the Edinburgh clubs. So there's been some really, really fantastic things that are going on. So people are just being creative and just keeping in touch. And I think it's adapting to a different way of doing things. It's not that you can't do things, it's just a different way. And so just that adaptability and flexibility and thinking a wee bit.
Well, there is a lot, like you say, there's so much to keep you motivated. I think for the Scotland team, they were focused on the World Cup and World Cup qualification. If you were a player, how would you be feeling right now with all of these things up in the air?
Well, it's interesting, the draw, since we last spoke, the draw for the World Cup was done in November, and Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, Dan Carter and Dr. Farah Parma, they all were there, and so there's 3 groups and there's 12 teams for the World Cup, and as we know, 9 slots have been taken and there's 3 slots available. And amazingly, there's still 5 qualifying tournaments to happen, or matches, and Scotland are part of the European qualification element, so for those 3 slots. So Scotland are in a group with Italy and Ireland, and also Spain, Russia or Netherlands could be the 4th spot, and they have to play a little tournament, and then the winner of that will get one of the spots for the World Cup, and then the runner-up of that will go into a final qualification tournament with all the other runners-up of the regional area. So there's a few permutations to happen there. So World Rugby have said there'll be a decision in March about, because obviously there's issues with travel, visas, so there's a qualification element of playing the but there's also the are we actually going to hold this tournament? It's meant to be September 18th starting, 9th World Cup, first time in the Southern Hemisphere, an amazing opportunity, an amazing spectacle. So there's a lot of decision making, like it'll be the New Zealand government, New Zealand Union, the other unions, all making a decision, World Rugby, about what's going to happen. So it's meant to start on the 18th September. Can we have crowds, spectators for travel and the border? New Zealand had a very strict border, and they've had very, very low incidence of cases, and I imagine they'd want to keep it that way. So it's how can we run this? So you know, the Six Nations have put it back a couple of months. I'm sure it's one of they'll be thinking, oh, do we put this back a couple of months to let spectators come, or do we run it on the 18th September with, you know, just like home spectators? So there's lots and lots of things. But in terms for the Scottish girls, the matches and fixtures are due out on Friday, but they'll just be waiting to hear about the European qualification elements. And it might be that some of the Italy and the Ireland matches, it might be that the Six Nations matches might double up as a European qualifier. That might, you know, be the account for that as well. So there's obviously the decision makers have got a lot, and there's a lot of work going on in the background. I know things at the moment are on hold, but there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of discussions going on about what's best, because there's not only the World Cup this year, there's the Olympics as well. And there's 6 Scottish girls in the extended Great Britain squad for the Olympics. So obviously that was meant to happen last year, and that got put back to this year. So that's meant to be in July. So
hopefully we will see them in action soon.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, it'd be fantastic. So they're working hard. So absolutely.
Brilliant, thank you, Heather. Yn tam yn eisiau clwyni'n fod che ar fel Heather Gumaioloch, yn y dan fel Thòisich Jade Konkel y chiad faranoch ar rugby a chluich làn-ùine yn Alba, y cosnog becan echt 3 heen, Phrìomh Lìog as traia yn siachgaid.
A chluicheadair Jade Konkel a cynnig eithgo gawns of Anna Corman and the rugby. A yanyan yi a vicho mesal agus a cluich sports for shop. Thòisich Jade a club inadal Rugbaidh in an ish.
Back in my day, when I was young, there wasn't much rugby for girls. So I was the only girl in a boys mini club. So that was with the Highland Minis. I was about 9 years old, and I spent a year there playing rugby. And that was like the age before I could there was nowhere for me to move up. So I stopped playing rugby when I was about 10 after that season. And every so often, a couple of times a year, there would be some form of development day. So Lindsay Smith, one of the ex-Scotland players, used to do loads of development days with girls rugby. And so I used to go along to some of them. Quite a lot of them were in Perth, and I would join a random rugby team and play in a tournament a couple of times a year, if that. But it wasn't until I was 17 that I was like, no, I'm fed up. I want to play rugby. I'm watching my brothers play rugby. I'm watching my dad play rugby. So I want to play rugby too. So when I managed to learn to drive, I drove to Edinburgh for a development day. I had no idea what it was whatsoever. Just seen it on the internet and was like, I'll go and trial for it, see if I can play a bit more rugby. And then I got selected into the under-20 squad. Which I actually got the email when I was on holiday with my sister, and I was like, we need to go home, I need to cancel the next family holiday, there's a camp, I can't do anything now, this is it. And I was gobsmacked. I just didn't expect anything. I just drove down to Edinburgh for this development day, and yeah, next step was into the under-20 squad. So when I got into the under-20 squad, I was like, well, this is massively a step up. I need to actually start playing rugby. So I was like, well, where can I go? And Lindsay Smith played for Hillhead Jordan Hill at the same time. So she was like, well, why don't you come down and see what you think? So I used to drive every weekend to Hillhead Jordan Hill from Inverness to get some game time. So that's kind of where it started. And then I was like, well, I need to move. I'd quite like to go to university. So let's tie them both together and try and get into university somewhere around that area. So I applied for like Glasgow and Stirling kind of area, and then got into university, and then decided to make the big move, even though I used to always tell my parents that I would never move out of Inverness, and now look at us.
Ha Jade mochtal I the gluas at the rangi go Hillhead Jordan Hill. Làn-ùine Thòisich.
When I was moving, I didn't really know what to expect, but I was just happy to get to play rugby. And the fact that I was getting to play rugby at such a high standard in Scotland was incredible. And I used to love every time that we would play Murrayfield Wanderers back in time about how competitive that game was, because it was something that I'd never really experienced before. So I kind of moved down, and I was completely like going into the unknown, but what I actually ended up being involved in exceeded expectations. And you know, the club were really welcoming. There were some great people around. Heather Lockhart, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for her. She literally held my hand through thick and thin. And again, she's somebody that came from Hillhead Jordan Hill. So, you know, a really good group of players that definitely helped along the way.
Ystawrag an na dábhíle siad. San undó a bhís hi a chluicheadair, bhris Jade féin a bachcin an na sil rugby na Halpa, mar a hiad fadannach alpanach a chluich rugby, proifeiseanta làn-ùine.
So I got taken into a meeting, and they sat me down, and it was everyone that was there. So obviously I was quite nervous, like, and the first thing you think about is, what have I done? Why am I in trouble? It's like back in your school days when you get taken in and your teacher's like about to tell you off. So try to think of all the things that I'd done wrong. And then they just said, based on, you know, the last year and working with you as an athlete, we see a lot of potential, and we really want to offer you a stage 3 contract. So to me, again, I was completely blindsided because it was never a thing. So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't expect that conversation happening, and then I didn't really know what was going to come from it. So as I always say, like, I definitely cried. I cry at a lot of things, and I'm okay with that. You know, I'm a big, tough rugby player. I've got lots of tattoos, but I cry a lot, and that's fine. So yeah, that came about from there. And then I spent a year with the Stage 3 Academy lot. And obviously I was the only female in that group, but then taking it back, Heather Lockhart was definitely really good in that environment that helped me get through that first year with all the guys. But really, really fantastic start, because as much as I was the first one to get it in 2016, look where we are now, and we're only going to continue to develop. So the first but not the last, and I think that's what the most important part of it all is. Because if you look at the way the sport's developed, in various countries, the fact that we could start it back in 2016 to start, you know, putting more into the women's game and developing and actually showing younger players that there is going to be a pathway, and there is a pathway for women. I think that opened up so many eyes. So then even now in 2021, players can see an even bigger path now. So we started it quite early on, and we're just going to keep building from there, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
As we bliana amsan rang Cluinnidh Iona the Harlequins ag bar a Phrìomh Lìog Jade Konkel. Ha Jade it tullig uit de Ienos na skillenaiche. ach sawn am to lean gorm le skip yn y h-Alba far a fel cwtio yn y cynnych yn y siar, aicha yn y rugby.
Obviously everyone wants to win. So like my first win at Broadwood Stadium 2017 against Wales, that was the first time I won for Scotland during a Six Nations tournament, which was absolutely fantastic. And then the fact that we got to go to South Africa was incredible for a two test tour, because that's something I'd never experienced before. So the fact that we got to go away as a squad, really kind of gel, build our culture and come away with 2 wins, again, was absolutely fantastic. And then the recent draw against France. So obviously I've played for many years. I've been on, the back end of some high scoring games. So to come back with a 13-all draw against a team who are 5th in the world is definitely a massive highlight.
Sy'n flin y ffaran dyfunig alop y da game eidd le an y rugby yn ban, ac ac yn yn am ffrediach gemich yn gerbyr son cwpan y crynia salw bwy Covid-19 diag. A Jade doch as a cast y ganian y dyliatasyn, o blein y fichet.
It's been a very tough year for everyone. I think there's been some highs and some lows, but the fact that we've managed to get some rugby in is absolutely fantastic. And throughout lockdown 1.0, every week we had a Zoom fitness session, which I'm not sure many people will thank me for, but it brought us all together, which was nice. And then to come back having, games postponed, games cancelled, constantly being in and out, are we playing, are we not, to come back and then get that 13-all draw against France, despite everything that had happened previously, just shows how much we can continue to build with all that kind of negative stuff being thrown at us. And you've got to control the controllables, and half the time we don't know what we can control right now with the way the world is, but you've just got to take each day as it comes, plan and keep doing what you can within that time that you have, so then when you are back to it, you're going to be in the best shape possible. And it is important to just stick together, so having those small conversations with your mates in the team, checking in on each other, and then when you can, if anyone fancies doing some burpees, then I'm always on the other end of the laptop to join them.
Well, burpees I do not fancy, but Jade is somebody that you know well, and you did play with her. I mean, she is a history maker now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first female to get a professional contract, which was fantastic. But it's interesting there, she didn't play rugby between the ages of 9 and 17, and went to Edinburgh on a whim. So it's interesting, the year that she got that professional contract, she took the juniors every week at Hillhead. So I think that says a lot for her, from her experience. She's talking about pathways, etc., and the growth that she's seeing now, even between 2016 and now. So and she was part of that. It wasn't like she was saying there's no pathway every week, and it wasn't just training on a Wednesday night, it was matches as well. So she's just a phenomenal role model. They absolutely loved it. There was somebody that just become a professional, and it just shows you how much she wanted it. She drove herself to Edinburgh, didn't know, and then got selected for the under-20s. But it was interesting that she had played a bit and she knew she wanted to do it, and I think that comes out throughout as well. She's now got her own business, Team Apex Training, which is phenomenal, which is personal training, so online and etc., for all those burpees. So again, that's coming from her. So her background's actually, when she talked about Glasgow Cali Uni, is social work, and she's got a qualification in that as well. So but she's transferred, and I think that caring side is coming out in her coaching side as well. And I'm sure the clients will be delighted, and all her teammates will be delighted too, with all those sweaty sessions. So she's got a lot of good soft skills, as long as the hard skills on the rugby pitch. So, and I think that comes out there as well. So
it definitely does come out there. So nice to hear her talk, and so nice to hear her talk so passionately about her career. And there were some lovely mentions about you in that feature there. Can you just tell us about your time playing with Jade?
Yeah, I mean, just a fantastic teammate, and great to train with, and great to play with. Just 100% committed in everything she does. Lots of there was one time she had a really bad shoulder injury. She got injured playing sevens in Holland, so I was rehabbing with her and doing lots of walk bite sessions, and just phenomenal. Yeah, really like pushing each other on. I think it's great just to have like a training buddy, and that's exactly so. And obviously, like, it was a time, with the first contract contract, etc., sort of time of change. So just being there and sort of like, and I hadn't gone through that, but just being another sort of someone to sound things off, you know, just to talk about things. So yeah, no, she's a great girl. She's a great girl. I'm just so proud, and especially when she got that professional contract in Scotland, and then the next year she's going, no, I'm going to go to France. So she's constantly pushing herself on, and she didn't speak the language, you know what I mean, and there she went to Lille. So I think that is that's a real growth, not just on the rugby pitch, but as an all-round person, you know, someone from the Black Isle, you know, finds herself in northern France. So that's a great, you know, she wanted to, for her own personal development as well as her rugby development, and then she's at Harlequins, are obviously sitting top of the Premier 15s, so she's always pushing on. So and the same with her training as well. Whatever setbacks she had, whether injuries, etc., she's always, you know, pushing herself on.
It's amazing to see, and she, like we just were talking about there, you helped her, but she also helped you set up your Twitter, didn't she? Yeah.
She's my social media manager, yeah. Yeah, that year I was just like, what's Twitter? And she was just like, give me your phone. So yeah, she like, yeah, exactly. So yeah, bring both things to each other. Yeah, exactly. Keep me on it.
I like that. But now she's paving the way for women and girls coming through. I mean, that's so important.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fantastic. Like globally, the World Rugby have got a strategy 2017 to 2025 to like grow the game, and there's 5 aspects of that, and one of which is the profile of the game. And we're talked about social media, and that's one of the things that empowerment for players. They can go on Twitter, they can go on Instagram and profile the game, and especially during lockdown, it's a phenomenal time for people to engage with what's going on and see the growth. So yeah, it's in that the 5 strands, and she's very, very much part of that. And as I said, all the young players in Scotland, just what a role model. There is a pathway, and I mean there is and there's more competitions, and there is more coaching. There's a Scottish Futures programme within Scotland for the youngest players now that they can engage with, and they know that they can, you know, playing. And I know that not everyone at the moment is full-time per se. We're on that pathway. We're almost sort of like at halfway point at the moment globally. So, but things are happening, things are moving. So it's just fantastic to see. And World Rugby are driving it, and the unions are driving it. But I think as well, given all what's happened recently, players are driving it as well, coaches, everyone involved in it. So it's a really exciting time. There's also a leadership strand of that World Rugby facet, and there's 12 coaches, because they identified that there's not lots and lots of female coaches as well. So there's 12 coaching internships attached to each country that qualifies for the World Cup. So again, that's another development. And then there's also identified that leadership roles as well. Jade is leading the way, and you can lead on the pitch, coaching, etc. And there's also 17 females being elected to the World Rugby Council too. So there's a voice there at the decision-making level globally. So it's a really exciting time. I mean, there is such interest. Last World Cup there was 45 million views on the social media platform, so really exciting.
Great, well we are going in the right direction. Well, rugby gubal cosha, agus Màthar Gill Inglis ag topar na Màthar a bhí coid arás, a dréch agus a coid far an ring an club eiche a genú na siar at ar seo agus dúrach na season.
Ha cluicheadair topar na Màthar Gill Inglis idh bhí a cluich an san SWPL san barach go 10 bliana. Bhí seach bhac má folasach gur bé an ball cosha I Thòisich chora.
So I was the first grandchild, and my grandpa used to take me out into the back garden, and he used to kick a ball about with me when just after I'd started walking actually. So I think it was because of him that I started playing football, and I played at school, played in the school football team too. The janitor at my school was really good, and he was a massive football fan, and he took both the girls and the boys teams, so that was great. And then I pestered my mum and dad for ages and said, please let me join a team, and eventually they signed me up to Rugbaidh, which is my local team.
Leis a talent agus na cumail aice I the helting ag a club Unital, glúis an cluicheadair go Hamilton Accies, bar a chudí seachad 9 blianachin mar skipper ag a club.
I absolutely loved my time at Accies. I feel like I was really lucky to get the opportunity to play there for so long. I developed a really good relationship with Gary Doctor and Bobby Watson. I think that they were really progressive through their time at Accies. I wouldn't have stayed if I didn't enjoy it type thing, and I think that they always changed training, they changed their approaches to games and things, and I think they really adapted to every squad that they had. So I think Gary and Bobby involving the players in a lot of big decisions meant that I really enjoyed my time at Accies.
A sewe gi a duafas a cholar yn clei Accies, fa Gill a fadach yn gre am kerst y fawn gi, dŵlan ŵriachang, nw the noch Rangers like Corum gi.
So Rangers had come in for me a couple of years before, and I just felt that it wasn't the right time to move. But looking back, I remember thinking, oh, I hope I don't regret that. So when they came in for me in the second time, I think that it didn't have anything to do with Accies. I just kind of wanted a new challenge. I'd been there for so long, and I was excited by the challenge at Rangers. So I thought, if I don't go now, I'm not sure if I will go, and I wouldn't want to regret that. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go and give it my all, give it my best shot.
Yn teis yn sychau, glach topen y mad yn Corum chluicheadair gyll iawr ewl y sain, agus fa Gill y gwlachwg son a chiad seis yn eiche colodys yn skippa nu the noch pandemic. Agus yn nŵrsyn, jadach fro Thòisich yn teis yn sy, ba brisiach dŵl eich geheen.
I broke 2 bones in my foot in the last game of pre-season, so I've not actually played at all this year, or last year, sorry. I only started running last week again, so I've had a bit of a nightmare from that point of view. You know, the world seemed to be getting back to normal to an extent, and I had a moon boot on and been doing for months. It's been a longer process than we first thought, which has been frustrating, and it's been tough mentally as well. As I said, I've never had a long-term injury to deal with before, so it was something that was new. But I've had great support from Motherwell, the manager, Eddie, and the players and the physio and stuff as well. So I've got a clear programme, hopefully, over the next few weeks that I can do. It's back to running myself like everybody else. But hopefully I can come back a wee bit fitter, and then I'll just need to get back to match sharpness, and hopefully I get to play games. Otherwise the season's going to have been a write-off as well.
Hai de vi dodder do Gill coit for farna parke. Ach leis y ligan is na taf, se Corum a shot do Gill is na co-chluicheadair uit is a yano it na leiction, a se vi Thòisich I slutach and teisnse.
Yeah, I think everybody at the club would admit that we really didn't have the best first half of the season. I think there's definitely things that we need to improve on. I think that having such an experienced manager in Eddie is a huge help to us. Willie and Stuart as well, that our coaches, they've both played the game at a really good level, and they bring kind of a different aspect to training. We've had meetings as players and with coaches and things, and I think that we've identified the things that we need to work on, whether that's on the training pitch, whether it's a kind of mental side, as well as being in the gym, like is it a strength related thing, something like that. As you say, this time has probably given us the time to be together. It's like another mini pre-season. Hopefully it gives us time to gel together as a squad, maybe bring in some new faces potentially, and help a lot of the younger players, because looking at our squad, teams probably think that we look quite young and we look quite inexperienced in terms of an SWPL 1 team. So we, as experienced players, myself included, obviously have to help with the younger players and help them through games, talk to them at training, give them wee bits of advice. But they're really willing to listen to advice, and they'll come and speak to us. So hopefully that stands us in good stead for the rest of the season.
Le blian na glasach agus leoning, ha Gill iddi bi amiawracha is na harichi and a hachas sa league, amson de chluichi son ground vliendichen.
Oh, there's a huge difference between what it was back then and what it is now. And I think that, the infrastructure, the investment, the quality is different as well. At the beginning, when I started playing women's football, you only trained twice a week. And I remember, the change into training like 3 and 4 times. but now there's so many more opportunities for girls, and you know, they can go and make a career out of this. They can go and, you know, they can dream about actually being a professional footballer, and I think that's great for the country. You know, it's great for the national team and things, and I hope, you know, that the investment continues and that it's a long-term thing.
Heather, Jill was speaking there about so many things that we can draw parallels with, but just at the end there, even the growth in the game since she's been involved for over a decade now. We were just talking about how far rugby's come beforehand. I mean, are you pleased with where women's sport is going?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was interesting. She started at school, and that was playing with her grandfather as well. But then they had a team at school, and I think that's definitely a growth area. I think more and more, I think for rugby and football, the schools is one way as well as the clubs. And then obviously she's talking about they're playing at senior level and how well she's done there. So there's definitely parallels with that. So it's fantastic to see with women's sport and the development at the moment.
And she also talks about kind of being taken on by Motherwell and using her experience to help the younger players coming through, which, as we just heard again earlier in the programme, Jade speaking about you helping her. How important is it to have these figures in these teams?
I think she's a primary teacher as well. She probably wouldn't set out to be that way. That's maybe just how she is. But probably the way, certainly for last year, should be in terms of her involvement, because she had her injury, she would still be inputting. She was talking about going to meetings, etc. So I think that the break for her, in terms of the matches being on hold at the moment, has come at a good time, and she'll be encouraging the younger team. And they're sitting 7th at the moment, so hopefully they can regroup and look at what. And she was talking about what areas to work on. Is it strength and conditioning? Is it tactical? So a lot of it probably in terms of experience might be the more tactical side of things, so it gives them time to do like a mini pre-season. So as I say, she wouldn't have set out to do that way, but maybe that just comes naturally to her as well. So that's why Motherwell have obviously, you know, signed her, and even when she's injured and dealing with her own injury, she's able to help the others, which is fantastic.
Well, like you were just saying there is the break in the season, and I guess it's different how everyone approaches it. You definitely have a positive outlook on it, on using it to the best that you can and kind of gaining that momentum. How do you keep people motivated though?
Yeah, I think it's just like keeping in touch and keeping and planning like a wee schedule as well. I think you know, obviously at the moment with lockdown there's the different ways, but I think individually and as a team having a little schedule and little check-ins and team meetings, etc., it's amazing what you can do. So I think, yeah, we schedule as well, like a wee training program. We schedule, and just like checking back our diary. Individual training diaries are a really useful tool as well for young players. They go, oh, I did that 2 weeks ago. Oh, right. And then in terms of or they could be looking at videos of, see, the game in the first half of the season and go, oh, well, I did X, Y, and Z. That worked, but maybe we could work on that a wee bit more. How could I do that? And just like little bits and things like that. So video analysis at this time of year would be a phenomenal tool to do. Yeah.
As a coach, have you kept in touch with other coaches across different sports on what you're doing and what works and what doesn't work? Yeah,
I think we're always sharing ideas and social media as well. Like you go, oh, that's really good. Oh yeah. It's you don't wholeheartedly take one thing, but just bits and pieces. You go, oh, I could adapt that, and then I was talking to you about the Australian Open and lockdown, and the players are training in the hotel rooms again. You're like, well, that's a good exercise to do. Adapt that, etc. So you're always getting new ideas. So yeah, sharing ideas is always good. And as players as well, I think players can help each other as well. Sometimes you're talking about the coach-player dynamic, but I think sort of peer coaching is really good as well. So for instance, like midfielders could sit down, footballers can say, oh right, maybe we could do this better, or that's working, let's really keep doing that. So and they can kick a ball around still, so hopefully keep practicing.
I guess it's quite a big question, but it's one that we can look back at in 20 years time and maybe have a different view. But just now, for sport, do you think we're doing the right thing in terms of how things are continuing or not continuing during the pandemic?
I think there's always a tipping point, isn't there? And in 20 years time, so it's just like, it's one for the decision makers, the government, and there's an element of social responsibility there. So I think it's a fine line, and obviously as cases rise, then maybe the right thing to do is, there's always a right time to do things, and sometimes there's a right time, and I think at the moment, you know, we're doing the right thing and just things on hold at the moment. So and we'll just see how things develop. But as sports players, we have social responsibilities as well. So we have to be able to see the wider picture as well, and that's important too.
Yeah, and we will be looking forward to seeing sport back fully in action soon.
Absolutely,
Great.
absolutely.
Thank you, Heather. Well, sin air som program eile, ma hang for do Heather is on the callroom sin studio. Fit is ever lentil gach shachkin ar YouTube, mar sin jan keen shachkin ein chef gavella cartefreef, commission gar lentil agus nach calship programs in B. Can ik gresho in program akifshe, mar sin skelven neak fat is farsing agus kimi bor of a coed. Wat dach spores for nach na halve, mar sin live in dras.